Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Potyondy. I'm the city's water attorney in the city attorney's office, and I'm here to provide an update on the Poudre Flows plan. This has been a long-term effort since at least 2013 with the Poudre Runs Through It group. And, really for the city of Fort Collins, the issue of improving the Poudre River stream flows, it goes back well into the 1980s, if not before. So this is a pretty exciting project we're working on. You can see the list of our current partners there. These are sort of the main partners we've been working with these past couple years. It's a pretty diverse group. We have the Colorado Water Trust, which is a really well-known and respected nonprofit group that tries to work within Colorado water law to improve the environment. We have 3 cities, Fort Collins, Greeley, and Thornton, all of which have water utilities. We have a raw water provider in the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, which is usually known as Northern Water. An association of all the major ditch companies on the Poudre River and other diverters, and 2 of the key state agencies. So this is really a broad group across different areas and entities. And I think it's particularly notable that we have groups that haven't always played so well in the sandbox together. And in many ways, we've joked with our group that sometimes, Fort Collins, Greeley, and Northern are at times frenemies on the river. But, like any neighbors, sometimes you get along and sometimes you have things to work through, and this is a great area where we're all getting along and moving ahead. We've had 2 intergovernmental agreements between all of these groups that were approved by resolutions in 2016 and 2018, and that's sort of how we've been organizing ourselves. So to turn to the plan itself, the goal is pretty straightforward. The goal is to try to improve flows in the Poudre River. This aligns with some strategic council objectives, 4.5, which talks about protecting and enhancing natural resources on city-owned properties. I'd note that the Poudre River flows through a lot of city natural areas and is relevant to that. And also 4.6, which is really specifically about protecting the Poudre River itself. Some key aspects about this plan is geographically, we're really talking about the canyon mouth up near Ted's Place, down to its confluence with the South Platte River, just east of Greeley. So we're really not talking about the portion of the Poudre River up in the canyon. And if you're curious, there are existing legal mechanisms to protect river and water in the river up there. So our focus has been a little bit downstream, below the canyon mouth. When we've really been focused on when additional water is needed to meet the Poudre River's needs. There are times when additional water really wouldn't make a significant additional benefit, according to some of our analyses, so we're really focusing on those places and times of needs. And as a major sideboard, we've really been focused on not injuring others' water rights, including those of Fort Collins and our neighbors, and operations historically been a major snag in these sorts of plans. So this is probably one of the less exciting slides in the presentation, but this is about the augmentation plan. So an augmentation plan is the legal mechanism that we're using for the Poudre Flows plan, and it's really what makes this a new approach to in-stream flows. It's more flexible than historical approaches where you either tried to get a new water right or take existing water rights and change them permanently for augmentation use. This would be a more flexible plan where you can bring water in, potentially take water out, and find new sources over time. And there's 2 main approvals that this approach requires. Approval from the Colorado Water Conservation Board, the CWCB, and the Water Court. And we'll touch on those a little bit later. Also, a few years ago, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, or everyone didn't quite see eye to eye on whether augmentation plans could be used for this purpose. Historically, and still to this day, augmentation plans are typically used to facilitate additional diversions out of the river. To tie this to another existing item that's been before council, that's sort of the legal mechanism that the Montava folks are talking about using. But here we're sort of flipped it on its head and wanted to use the augmentation plan to put more water into the river. Statewide, and with some of the state officials, this caused some head scratching and some brow furrowing. So we decided to seek the help of the legislature to get this clarified. In 2019, we went to the legislature, our group, and didn't really have any opposition, but unfortunately our bill got swept up in some politics that I, to this day, don't think I fully understand. But in 2020, before the pandemic really hit, we came back and we had a bill that was not only bipartisan with a Democratic and a Republican sponsor, it was nearly unanimous through both houses, which is really something to say these days. So big shouts out and thanks to both of our sponsors, Senator Don Coram from the Montrose area on the West Slope and our local representative, Jenny Arndt. So this slide here really boils down the plan to its essence. And despite this being water law, despite this being Colorado water law, the essence of the plan is pretty simple. If you can kind of see over here on the left, the big blue line through the middle is the Poudre River. And on the left, you can see added water. So the whole concept here is we're going to take water that was previously used and consumed by crops for irrigation. We're going to add that to the Poudre River. It's going to flow down the Poudre River where it's going to be protected while it's there. And then at the end of a defined reach, after it's improved flows, we can either leave that water in the river or re-divert it for another use. There's a lot of legal overlay on each of these pieces, but that's the essence of the plan. The beauty of it is that it's new water that would be added to the river that historically hasn't been there. So it is additional water for the river. It's water that can be reused after it's improved flows. And a key part is that because it's all new water, it shouldn't affect anyone else. It shouldn't affect people who've been diverting and are continuing to divert, people doing water trades, including Fort Collins and its partners. So that's the essence of the plan. It seems relatively simple, and hopefully because it is. This slide can give you a sense of how simplicity and elegance of a simple idea looks in the real world, where it's a little more complicated. This is a slide some of our consultants have put together, which shows the Poudre River really from the mouth as it goes through Fort Collins, through Windsor, and down to Greeley. For our purposes, we've broken the river into specific reaches to analyze how much additional water would be a goal for each reach. That's primarily based on the needs of key fish species. And you can also see that there are 3 of our partners, including Fort Collins, have proposed to identify specific water rights to add to the plan. Fort Collins has proposed water rights, and that's been approved by a resolution where we would add water upstream of Fort Collins. It would flow through Fort Collins and then be re-diverted into Rigdon Reservoir. Our friends Thornton have water that they would add to the river up closer to the canyon mouth and pass all the way down through the entire length of the Poudre to its confluence with the South Platte. And Greeley as well has some water rights that would be on the lower stretch of the river. And as I sort of mentioned before, these are what we've been calling the seed water rights. These are the water rights that would initially be used to improve flows. And the hope is that after we get our plan approved and over time, we can reach out to other partners and try to bring additional water and additional flows to this plan. This past January, we hit a pretty major milestone by getting the CWCB to approve the plan and authorize us to continue ahead. Under Colorado law, they're the only entity that can actually own and hold in-stream flow water rights, so we needed to get them on board. And we've got that major piece done. So now we're off to water court, which is, we're hoping to file our application either this month or next. We've been finalizing that, and that's about a 2 to 3 year process. After we get that done, it'll be on to implementation. We'll need to work with probably a new agreement amongst our partners as far as who's doing what on a day-to-day basis, who's keeping track and doing the accounting, as well as new funding mechanisms. I would note that our partner, the Colorado Water Trust, has been doing a really good job of reaching out to different entities who are excited about the plan and are willing to provide some funding for it. So I just wanted to close, but also just to note, I think this project and its progress shows that, despite the challenges of Colorado water law and the complex world we live in, you can do great things on the river. It just often takes time, it takes persistence and dedication, and it helps to have friends.